Part 1. Beyond the Law, LGBTQ+ rights, and the meaning of freedom in America. When we talk about LGBTQ+ rights in the United States, we're not just talking about legal policies. We're talking about the very essence of freedom, of what it means to be human, and of what a modern society should look like. It's a much bigger conversation than just a few pieces of legislation. I want to start with a personal observation. I don't think being yourself has ever been this politicized. In many US states, especially conservative ones, something as basic as a trans child wanting to be addressed by the pronouns that feel right to them has become a national debate. That's such a distinctly American reality, where personal freedom is both celebrated and constantly pitted against traditional values. Let's look at the numbers. In 2023, over 500 bills were introduced, aiming to restrict LGBTQ+ rights, the majority targeting trans youth. From banning gender-affirming care, to blocking kids from playing on sports teams that align with their gender identity. Things that should be simple, like access to puberty blockers or being allowed to change your name in school records, are now political flashpoints. So we have to ask, are we actually protecting children, or are we using them as pawns in a culture war? Now, I'm not denying that people who oppose trans rights often have real concerns about long-term effects of hormones, about the possibility of misidentifying during adolescence, or even just about things they don't fully understand. But the danger comes when those concerns turn into blanket bans, instead of opportunities to listen, to learn, and to ask thoughtful questions. Let's be clear, LGBTQ+ rights aren't special rights. They're about being able to exist safely, about not being erased from textbooks, about going to school without fear of judgment, about living as yourself, without needing anyone's permission. And if we're going to call ourselves a country of freedom, that freedom can't just belong to the majority, or to those who live the most normal lives. It has to belong to those who dare to live differently too. Part 2. When the law becomes a battlefield, LGBTQ+ rights, and the politics of identity. When we shift to the legal side of this issue, LGBTQ+ rights are no longer just about the right to exist. They become a struggle between the rule of law and deeply rooted prejudice. Take Title IX. For example, a civil rights law passed in 1972 to prevent gender-based discrimination in education. No one back then could have imagined that one day, Title IX would be a key legal defense for transgender students. But today, it's a critical tool used to protect LGBTQ+ youth, whether it's about bathroom access or the right to play sports in line with their gender identity. In recent years, however, many states have worked to bypass or undermine Title IX with their own laws. In Texas, for example, SB 14 bans doctors from providing gender-affirming care to minors, including puberty blockers and hormone therapy. In Florida, the Don't Say Gay law restricts elementary school teachers from discussing sexual orientation or gender identity. And it's written so vaguely that many teachers are now afraid they'll get in trouble just for using the correct pronouns with a trans student. What's alarming is that these laws don't just reflect division, they're actively deepening it. LGBTQ+ rights have been turned into an election strategy, a way to draw a line between us and them, between traditional values and wokeness. And caught in the middle of these ideological battles are real people, real students, real families, just trying to live their lives. I think about a story from Arkansas. A 16-year-old girl named Dylan, who is trans, once said that taking monthly hormone shots wasn't about changing herself. It was about finally not feeling lost in her own body. After the state banned gender-affirming care for minors, her mother had to drive her over 500 miles to Illinois, just so she could continue the treatment that her psychologist, her doctor, and her family all agreed she needed. And I ask myself, how can we call that protecting children, when those very children are being forced to leave their home state, just to live as themselves? This isn't theory anymore. This is real life. This is about mental health. This is about a puberty interrupted, or worse, damaged by shame and rejection. According to the Trevor Project, over 40% of LGBTQ teens seriously considered suicide in the past year, and that number drops significantly when they have access to respectful pronouns, gender-affirming care, and supportive environments where they don't have to perform as someone they're not. A child shouldn't have to earn the right to have their identity respected. They just need the chance to live. But I'm not naive. I know every social shift brings backlash. Every step forward in civil rights is met with some kind of cultural earthquake. The growing visibility of LGBTQ people in film, media, schools has made some Americans feel like their values are being threatened. And I won't dismiss that feeling, because fear of difference is one of humanity's oldest instincts. But society doesn't move forward by feeding fear. It grows by turning fear into understanding, and shaping policies not based on gut reactions, but on reality. The reality that LGBTQ+ people exist, whether we acknowledge them or not. And the law can either be used to legitimize erasure, or to build a foundation where all citizens, regardless of gender, orientation, or identity, are treated with dignity. I don't have a perfect answer, but I know this. LGBTQ+ rights are not a privilege, they are a test. A test of whether we truly mean it when we say that freedom here is for everyone. Even for the people you don't understand. Even for the people you don't agree with. Even for the people you've never met. Because if freedom only applies to the majority, then it's not freedom. It's privilege in disguise.